The rifle was still on the table when Colonel Harston walked in. Not disassembled, not holstered, laid flat across the briefing room table like someone had set it there on purpose, the way you'd place a document you needed people to read before the meeting started. The range officer standing in the corner had his arms crossed and his jaw tight, which told Colonel Harston everything about the mood in the room before anyone said a word. The woman sitting behind the rifle didn't look up. She had a legal pad in front of her covered edge to edge in calculations, wind drift formulas, elevation adjustments, trajectory arcs written in a handwriting so small it looked like shorthand. She was working through something with a mechanical pencil, erasing and rewriting the same figure in the bottom corner, and she did not acknowledge that a colonel had just entered the room. Specialist Vance, Harston said. She finished the calculation. Then she looked up. Her name was Maren Vance, 29 years old, 5'4", which had gotten her dismissed at more briefings than she could count. She had gray eyes that processed a room the way a scope processes a sight picture, methodically, without sentiment. She had deployed twice to places that didn't make the news, done work that didn't get written up, and she was currently being reassigned to a desk in Fort Campbell because a captain named Hollis had written in her performance review that she demonstrated difficulty integrating within standard team operational frameworks, which was a particular way of saying she had corrected his ballistic calculation in front of his own unit and turned out to be right. "Colonel," she said. Harston sat down across from her. He looked at the rifle. He looked at the legal pad. "You want to tell me what happened at the range this morning?" "I made the shot," she said. "At 2,300 yards, 2,347, she said. "Wind was 12 knots, not 8. Range officer had the wrong reading." The range officer in the corner made a sound. Harston held up one hand without looking at him. "The target was stationary," Harston said. "The target was stationary," Maren agreed, "which is why I'm confused about what we're discussing." Harston studied her for a long moment. She held his gaze without difficulty, which was itself unusual. Most people, when a colonel studied them that way, found something else to look at. Maren Vance looked back like she was reading wind data off his face. "You're not being reassigned to Campbell," Harston said. She didn't react. She'd learned a long time ago that reacting before you understood the full information was a form of giving something away. "I'm listening," she said. He slid a folder across the table. She opened it. "Read the first page." "Read it again." "This is a hostage situation," she said. "Active. 16 hours in a federal courthouse, 7th floor, 4 gunmen, 11 hostages. One of the hostages is Senator Darren Fitch's daughter." Harston paused. "She's 17. Maren turned to the second page, tactical diagrams, building schematics. A photograph of the southeast corner window. 4th position from the left on the 7th floor, taken from what looked like a rooftop across the street. She noted the angle. She noted the distance marker in the corner of the photo. "Who took this shot?" she said. "What shot?" "The assessment photo. This is from the rooftop of the Alderman building. That's..." She did the geometry in her head without looking at the pad. "Roughly 1,100 meters to the 7th floor southeast window. Whoever went up there to take this photo had to account for glass refraction, building thermals, angle of declination." She tapped the photo. "They did it wrong." Harston was quiet for a moment. "That's why you're here," he said. She looked up from the folder. "The breach team is staged," he said. "Negotiators have been talking for 16 hours. We've had 3 false windows. Senator Fitch has been on the phone with the director twice in the last hour. The lead gunman, we're calling him Carver, no confirmed ID yet, told the negotiator 40 minutes ago that if he sees tactical movement on the street, he'll start with the youngest." Harston let that sit. "There is a window, literally. 1, southeast corner. It opens on a 7-second cycle, we think. Air circulation problem in the building. The HVAC makes the seal imperfect, and every 8 to 12 minutes it drifts open approximately 4 inches. 4 inches. At 100 meters. Maren looked back at the photo. "Who's your current designated marksman?" "Staff Sergeant Croft. 11 years, 2 deployments. Excellent record." "What's his longest confirmed shot?" Harston didn't answer immediately, which was its own answer. "You need 100 meters through a 4-inch aperture in moving glass," Maren said, "with building thermals, a probable 6 to 8 knot variable wind at elevation, and a 7-second window that recurs on an irregular cycle. She closed the folder. "What's the girl's name?" "Lily," Harston said. "Lily Fitch." Maren picked up her mechanical pencil. "I'll need the last 6 thermal readings from the building exterior," she said. "The current HVAC maintenance schedule, if you can get it, and someone needs to get me up to that roof in the next 30 minutes, before the afternoon heating cycle changes the drift pattern." She looked at the legal pad, started writing. "And I need the negotiator to understand that when I'm ready, I will not wait for a confirmation call. I will take the shot when the window is right. If he's in the middle of a sentence, he stops." Harston stood up. "The roof access is already arranged," he said. She didn't look up. "I thought it might be." The Alderman building rooftop smelled like hot tar and pigeon dust. Maren had been up there for 40 minutes before the FBI tactical coordinator, a man named Reyes, climbed through the access hatch and stood behind her with the slightly careful posture of someone who wanted to say something but wasn't sure of the reception. She was prone. She had her notebook open to the left of the rifle, weighted at the corner with a brass casing she'd picked up from somewhere, and she was logging atmospheric readings every 3 minutes in a column, so neat it looked typeset. Temperature, wind at ground, wind at elevation. She was using a small handheld anemometer she'd brought herself because the one in the equipment kit was consumer grade and the variance was unacceptable. Humidity, the angle of the sun relative to the window, the reflection index off the glass. "You eat anything?" Reyes said. "When's the last cycle?" she said. He checked his radio log. 14 minutes ago. "So you've got 6 to 8 minutes before the next one if the pattern holds." She made a note. "It won't hold exactly. The HVAC cycles aren't perfectly regular. I've been watching the window for 31 minutes, and I've seen 2 partial openings, one at 19 minutes and one at 11 minutes before that. The 8 to 12-minute estimate is wrong. It's averaging closer to 10, but with a standard deviation of about 90 seconds. Rise was quiet for a moment. "Croft would like to know if you need him to." "No," she said. "He has more experience with. He's a better shot than most people I've worked with," she said, and her voice wasn't unkind, which somehow made it more definitive. "This particular shot requires a calculation set that takes time to build. The data's in my head. Transferring it creates error. I need him staged at the secondary position in case I have a mechanical failure, and I need him not on this roof." She heard Reyes breathe. "Okay," he said. He went back to the hatch. Stopped. "The girl has been moved. They just confirmed. She's visible at the window now, standing. We think Carver put her there on purpose." Maren absorbed that. "So she's in my sight line," she said. "Yes, and he's where? Our thermal imaging has him approximately 4 feet behind her and to the left." She did the geometry. 4 feet behind, 4-inch aperture, 100 meters. The angle of declension from rooftop to 7th floor. The girl in the way. "He thinks that makes the shot impossible," she said. "Most people would say it does." She looked up from the scope for the first time. Not at Reyes, at the building across the street, at the 7th floor window, which from here was a rectangle of reflected afternoon sky. "Tell the negotiator to ask Carver what he wants. Not to negotiate, just to ask. Keep him talking. I need him turned 15 degrees to the left. You need him." When people talk about what they want, they angle toward the person they're talking to. If the negotiator shifts his position on the phone, tells Carver he's moving to a different room, something that makes Carver track the sound, Carver will angle left. 15 degrees gives me a clean line past the girl to his left temple. Rise stared at her. "You've done this before," he said. She didn't answer that. She went back to the scope. 12 minutes, she said. "Go." What happened in the next 11 minutes was not dramatic in the way people imagine these things are dramatic. There was no music. There was no countdown clock on a screen. Maren lay on a rooftop that smelled like summer heat and old concrete, and she breathed and she calculated and she waited. And these 3 things were not separate activities. They were the same activity. She heard the negotiator's voice through the earpiece Reyes had left with her. Calm, measured. He was asking Carver about his children. She didn't know where that angle had come from. Maybe Reyes had briefed him. Maybe he'd found it himself. But it was the right move. People who are asked about their children turn toward memory. They turn slightly away from whatever is in front of them. They become for a moment less tactical and more human, which is not a weakness exactly, but it is a change in posture. She saw the shift in the thermal shadow behind the window. Not 15 degrees, more like 12. She adjusted, recalculated. The pencil on the pad moved once, quickly, not a long computation, because the long computation was already done, had been done 11 times in the last 40 minutes. Just a final check, the last digit confirmed. The window seal moved. She saw it before it fully opened. The way the reflected sky in the glass changed, a slight shimmer at the lower left corner, the seal releasing its grip. And she'd estimated this over 31 minutes of observation, 4 to 5 seconds before it would drift back. She did not think about Lily Fitch standing 4 feet in front of the man she was aiming at. This was not because she was cold. It was because she had already solved for Lily Fitch. The trajectory she had calculated curved, in the technical sense, compensating for the Coriolis effect at this distance, the slight rightward drift of a round traveling 100 meters through an atmosphere that was not a vacuum, in a way that put the flight path 6 inches above, and to the right of where the girl was standing. She had checked this calculation 9 times. She was not going to check it a 10th. Checking it a 10th would mean she didn't trust the 9 times before, and if she didn't trust them, she needed to get off the roof, which she was not going to do. The window opened. She exhaled. The round left the barrel in the space between one heartbeat and the next, in that brief interval of lowest physiological noise when the body is neither pushing blood out nor pulling it back, and in that interval the barrel was as still as it was going to get, and the calculation said it was enough. She kept her eye on the scope. Through the glass, in the fractional moment before the window drifted shut, she saw the thermal shadow behind the girl collapse. The girl did not fall. The girl turned around. Maren lay still on the roof for 3 more seconds. Then she sat up, picked up her notebook, and clicked the mechanical pencil closed. Her hands were not shaking. They had not shaken during, and they did not shake after. This was something people found unsettling about her when they witnessed it, and she understood why. She was not sure how to explain that the stillness was not absence of feeling. It was what the feeling looked like when it had been completely metabolized by the work. She had been afraid for Lily Fitch from the moment Harston said her name. That fear had gone directly into the calculations. The calculations had consumed it. What was left was this: a quiet roof, a closed window, and somewhere in a building across the street, a 17-year-old girl turning around to find the space behind her empty. Reyes came through the hatch 90 seconds later. He looked at her, at the rifle, at the closed notebook. "It's over," he said. "All 4 in custody. The girl is." He paused, and for a moment his tactical coordinator's composure slipped, and he looked like a person who'd been holding something together for 16 hours and was only now allowed to put it down. "She's okay. She's with her father." Maren nodded. She started breaking down the rifle. "Croft wants to know who taught you the thermal drift compensation," Reyes said. "He said he's never seen someone account for that variable in real time." "I worked it out myself," she said. "Deployed to a desert environment where the standard compensation tables were wrong. Had to rebuild them from scratch. Alone? My spotter was hit in the first week." She said it without ornament. "I finished the deployment." Reyes was quiet for a moment. "Nobody wrote that up," he said. "No," she said, "they didn't." She clicked the case closed, stood up. The afternoon sun was lower now, and the shadows on the rooftop had lengthened, and across the street the 7th floor window was closed and would stay closed, because the man who had controlled it was no longer standing behind it. The debrief was in a conference room on the 4th floor of the FBI field office, and it lasted 2 hours, and for most of it Maren sat at one end of the table and answered questions in the same tone she would use to explain a math problem to someone who was following along, but hadn't worked it out themselves. Not condescending, just precise. The FBI's chief tactical analyst, a woman named Dr. Serena Lott, who had a physics background and had apparently been skeptical of the plan from the beginning, stopped the debrief at the 90-minute mark to ask Maren to walk through the Coriolis compensation calculation one more time. Maren walked through it. Dr. Lott wrote something in her notebook. "Where did you get your mathematics training?" she asked. "Texas A&M, Maren said. "Applied mathematics, minor in physics, then OCS. Then the Army taught me everything it knew about ballistics, and I filled in the parts it didn't know. The Army didn't know about Coriolis compensation at this range? The Army's standard tables stop at 1,000 meters, Maren said. There's an assumption built into the doctrine that a shot at this range isn't operationally viable. So they don't develop the tools for it, and you disagreed with that assumption. I demonstrated that the assumption was wrong, Maren said. About 8 months ago, in a training environment, a captain named Hollis was running the exercise. He'd set parameters that made the 1,000-meter limit functionally invisible. You'd complete the exercise successfully without ever confronting the question. I adjusted the scenario parameters and made the shot at 400 meters. He wrote in his review that I had difficulty integrating within standard team operational frameworks. There was a silence in the room. Because you made a shot at 1,400 meters, Dr. Lott said. Because I made a shot at 400 meters and then explained, in front of his unit, why his parameters had been concealing a capability gap. Maren paused. In retrospect, I should have found a different moment for the explanation. But not a different shot, Dr. Lott said. No, Maren said, not a different shot. Dr. Lott wrote something else in her notebook. Harston, sitting at the opposite end of the table, was looking at the ceiling in the way of someone trying not to show that they were pleased about something. The debrief ended. People filed out. Harston stayed. When the room was empty, he slid another folder across the table. Maren looked at it, didn't open it. Another reassignment, she said. A different kind, he said. She opened it. It was a program description, not a unit she recognized. The letterhead was blank, not classified blank, which had its own particular look, but genuinely blank, like the paperwork had been generated for this specific conversation and didn't officially exist in a system yet. The program had a number instead of a name. The job description used phrases like extended range precision engagement and independent operational architecture, which she translated without difficulty, alone, far away, and doing things that didn't get written down. This is what I've been doing, she said. This is what you've been doing without resources, without support, and in spite of active institutional resistance, Harston said. This is what you'd be doing with all three. She read through the rest of the folder. Who else is in this program? Currently? 2. You'd be the third, the other 2. One is a former MARSOC operator who lost his unit and spent 14 months running solo in a theater I can't name. The other is, Harston paused in the way of someone choosing words carefully, a former intelligence analyst who turned out to be better in the field than behind a desk, which surprised everyone except her. Does it have a location? Rotating. You'd be based out of a facility in Virginia for training and debrief. Operational deployments are as needed. She closed the folder. Captain Hollis's review, she said, will be addressed. I don't need it addressed, she said. I need to know whether it follows me into this program. Harston looked at her directly. Nothing follows you into this program, he said. That's the point of it. She set the folder on the table. The girl, she said, Lily Fitch, what happens to her now? Harston seemed slightly surprised by the question. She goes home. Senator Fitch there will be a statement probably, a press conference. The family has security now. She was standing at that window for approximately 40 minutes, Maren said. She would have been looking at the street, at the tactical vehicles, at the people who were trying to figure out what to do. She paused. She knew what was happening. She's 17, not 7. She understood that she was the reason the shot was complicated. Harston was quiet. Someone should tell her, Maren said, that she didn't make it harder. She was standing exactly where she was supposed to stand. She kept still. That mattered. I'll pass that along, Harston said. Maren looked out the window. The street below was still partially blocked. Tactical vehicles, pulling back now. The ordinary afternoon, trying to reassert itself around the edges of a thing that had almost gone differently. I'll take the assignment, she said. She said it the way she said most things, without ceremony, because the decision had been made some time ago and announcing it was just administrative. She had made it on the roof, probably. Or in the moment the calculation confirmed that the shot was possible. Not just theoretically, but actually, in these conditions, with this wind, through this window, past this girl who was standing still because she understood At 17, that stillness was the only way she could help. Harston picked up the folder. "There's one more thing," he said. She waited. "The program lead will want to meet with you this week. Go over operational protocols, baseline assessments." He set the folder down again. "Her name is Commander Vanek, former Navy. She's particular about her people." "Particular how?" "She'll ask you why you do it," Harston said. "Why this, specifically? Most candidates try to give the answer they think she wants. What answer does she want?" "That's the thing," Harston said. "She doesn't want an answer. She wants to see whether you know the difference between an answer and the truth." Maren picked up her mechanical pencil from the table where she'd set it during the debrief. Looked at it briefly. "The truth is easy," she said. "Is it? I'm good at this," she said. "I was good at it before anyone gave me permission to be, and I'll be good at it after every institutional framework tries to contain what I can do inside a table that stops at 1,000 meters." She clicked the pencil. "The reason I do it is because the table is wrong, and someone has to know how far the distance actually goes." She stood up. "Tell Commander Vanek I'll be there Thursday." She walked to the door, stopped because there was one more thing, and she was going to say it or not say it, and she decided to say it. "Croft," she said. "Staff Sergeant Croft. He's good. His fundamentals are clean, his field discipline is excellent, and he's operating at the ceiling of what the current doctrine gives him to work with." She turned slightly toward Harston without fully turning around. "If this program has room for someone who's willing to be taught the rest of the table, he's worth the conversation." She didn't wait for an answer. She walked out of the conference room into the hallway of a federal building where the ordinary afternoon was already closing over the shape of what had happened. The tactical vehicles were gone. The street was a street again, and somewhere across town a senator was holding his daughter in a way that would never fully account for what she'd carried alone at that window, in the understanding that stillness was a form of courage, while a woman she would never meet lay on a rooftop and trusted the numbers.